Good evening, dear listeners. Welcome to another nocturnal journey through the annals of history. I trust you've all found your way here safely and are now settled in comfortably. Capital. Tonight, we embark upon a tale that has captivated historians and storytellers alike for centuries: the fall of the Roman Republic. As we drift off into the past, let us first gaze upon the Republic in its twilight. A once proud political system, now fraught with crisis, powerful generals clashing over power and territory, and a populace weary from endless conflict. Among these ambitious figures strode one man who would change the course of history: Julius Caesar. We shall follow Caesar's meteoric rise, his crossing of the Rubicon, and the fateful day that saw him pierced by conspiratorial daggers, the Ides of March. In death, Caesar's legacy lived on through Mark Antony's poignant funeral oration, a speech so powerful it stirred the very soul of Rome. And so, as we journey through this historic crucible, let us close our eyes and allow the echoes of ancient Rome to wash over us. Let the sounds of the Forum fade into whispers, and let us embrace the tranquility necessary for such profound storytelling. Now, dear listeners, let us sleep and dream in history. In the hushed embrace of twilight, Rome lies bathed in a silvered moonlight, her marble columns standing sentinel against the night. The Forum Romanum, once echoing with the clamor of commerce and debate, now rests in silence beneath the watchful eyes of Jupiter's temple atop Capitoline Hill. The Senate House, Curia, remains shrouded in darkness, its heavy shutters closed upon whispered secrets that have grown ever more dire in these final years of the 1st century before Christ. A warm summer's breeze meanders through the city, carrying with it the Tiber's languid breath, a scent of mud and thyme, ancient and unyielding like Rome herself. The river flows dark and slow, mirroring the moon above, as if bearing witness to the slow unravelling of the republic that has ruled for centuries. Yet tonight, even the distant sounds of revelry from Trastevere seem hushed, as though the very air holds its breath in anticipation of what is to come. Let us stroll along the Sacra Via, the sacred way that stretches out before us like a ribbon of history, leading us through the heart of Rome. The moon casts long shadows that dance with our footsteps, each stone beneath our sandals echoing with tales of empire and glory, now tempered by an undercurrent of unease. For Rome is in crisis, her once unassailable strength fracturing like cracks in marble. In the late years of this century, two brothers sought to stem the tide of corruption that threatened to engulf their beloved city. Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, sons of a consul, stood before the people with words, not swords, proposing reforms that would redistribute land from wealthy senators to the poor plebeians who had fought for Rome's glory. They spoke of justice, of equity, of a republic where power was held by the many, not the few. But their voices fell upon deaf ears in the Senate, where old men huddled like carrion birds, guarding jealously the privileges of rank and wealth. So, Tiberius and Gaius turned to the people, rallying them with promises of land and hope. They passed laws, they distributed food, they gave voice to those long silent. And for a time, it seemed as if Rome might indeed be reborn from the ashes of her own hubris. Yet power, like the Tiber itself, flows ever downwards, carving paths through rock and soil with inexorable force. So too did the might of Rome shift, away from the halls of law and into the hands of men who wielded not words but weapons. For in this late republic, it is not wisdom that commands respect, nor eloquence that wins hearts, it is arms. Sulla was the first to march his legions upon Rome itself, a sight hitherto unimaginable, like seeing Jupiter descend from his heavenly throne. A general once vaunted by the Senate now led an army against them, establishing a terrifying precedent that military might could override the constitutional laws of Rome. The city trembled beneath his boots, and men who had once held power were now reduced to supplicants, begging for mercy at his feet. In the Forum, where once great orations echoed off marble walls, now hang prescription lists. Scrolls containing names of men erased from the citizen rolls, their property seized, their lives forfeit. Each name is a stone added to the weight upon Rome's shoulders, each seizure a betrayal of her sacred principles. The Republic, like an ancient oak tree, creaks under pressure, her roots slowly breaking one by one. We walk now among spectres, shadows cast long by fear and uncertainty. Men who once stood tall as pillars of state now move with bowed heads. eyes darting nervously towards the silent sentinels of power, the lictors bearing fasces, symbols of office now tainted by their association with terror. The air is thick with dread, heavy with the unspoken words of men who once held power but now hold only silence. As we make our way towards the Pons Fabricius, the oldest bridge spanning the Tiber, let us pause for a moment at its southern end. From here, we can see across to Trastevere, where life goes on despite the chill that has settled over Rome like a shroud. There, in the flickering light of oil lamps, people laugh, they love, they live, unaware perhaps of the seismic shifts occurring upstream, but feeling them nonetheless in the tremors of unease that ripple through their daily lives. For Rome is changing, her once immutable laws crumbling like the foundations of a great building shaken by earthquake. And as we cross this ancient bridge, let us remember those who stood against the tide of corruption and fear: Tiberius Gracchus, Gaius Gracchus, Sulla himself, though his name now tastes bitter on our tongues. Let us honor them with our silence, for it is in quiet reflection that we find understanding, and perhaps even peace. As we reach the northern bank, let us turn back towards Rome, her marble towers bathed once more in moonlight. The city stands before us like a woman worn by time but still beautiful, her spirit unbroken despite the trials she has endured. For Rome is eternal, they say, not because she will never fall, but because she always rises again from the ashes of her own destruction. And so, let us leave her now, beneath the watchful gaze of Jupiter and the gentle caress of moonlight. Let us find our rest, knowing that tomorrow brings another dawn, another chance for Rome to remake herself anew, and perhaps, in the quiet hours between wakefulness and sleep, we too can contribute to her rebirth, with dreams not dissimilar to those once dreamt by Gracchus brothers or even Sulla himself. For now, however, let us simply be still, allowing the sounds of Rome at night to wash over us like a lullaby sung by history itself. Let the distant hum of the city soothe our minds, let the lapping of the Tiber against its banks gentle our hearts, and let the silvered moonlight guide us softly towards slumber. Let us drift now on the currents of sleep, carried away on waves of history's making, until we too become part of Rome's eternal story. In the hush of an ancient library, beneath the flicker of candlelight, we embark upon a journey through time's vast expanse. We find ourselves in Rome, not as it stands now, but as it was, in the era of intrigue and power that birthed the First Triumvirate. Let us first meet Pompey Magnus, the Great, a general celebrated throughout the Republic. His victories in the east had echoed like thunder, his name whispered with awe from the markets of Rome to the furthest provinces. Yet, for all his glory, he was no stranger to political storms. He had weathered them well, navigating the treacherous waters of Roman politics with a shrewdness that belied his youth. Now, let us turn our gaze to Marcus Licinius Crassus, a man whose wealth was legend. His fortune had grown like mushrooms after rain, fueled by buying burning buildings and the slaves who fought to save them. He was the first man in Rome, they said, not just in power, but in riches. Yet his ambition was a quiet thing, lurking beneath the surface of his calm demeanor. And then there was Gaius Julius Caesar, a name that would echo through history like a clarion call. Brilliant, charming, politically gifted beyond any of them, yet he was also massively in debt. His ambition burned like a flame within him, fueled by the whispered promises of power and glory. These three men, each a force to be reckoned with, found themselves drawn together by fate's invisible hand. In secret, they formed an alliance, a pact known only to them. The First Triumvirate was born. No votes were cast, no laws debated, no triumphs celebrated. Just a private dinner arrangement that rewrote the rules of Rome. The division of the world between them was as simple as it was profound. Pompey took the east, his laurels gleaming brighter than any golden wreath. Crassus, with quiet satisfaction, claimed the west, his wealth stretching like tendrils into every corner of the Republic. And Caesar? He was offered Gaul, a land wild and untamed, ripe for the taking. Why Gaul? Why not the comforts of Rome or the familiar lands of Italy? Because Caesar needed more. He needed wealth to pay off his debts, glory to burnish his name, and above all, he needed the absolute loyalty of legions that would follow him into hell itself if he asked it. Gaul gave him all this, and more. For a decade he fought in its muddy fields, crossed its treacherous rivers, and faced down its defiant tribes. He won victories so staggering, they echoed back to Rome like thunderbolts, each one driving deeper the loyalty of his men. They were his now, body and soul, the exth, thwith, fourth, thwith, xvith, and v8. Legions bound by honor and blood. While Caesar was away, Rome changed. The streets echoed with violence as gangs fought for dominance, their colors painted on walls like bloody graffiti. Elections were bought and sold, senators afraid to speak their minds lest they fall foul of some powerful patron. Cicero, that great orator and thinker, wrote letters in quiet despair, his words a lament for the Republic's fading light. Yet amidst this chaos, Caesar stood apart. His name was a beacon of hope, his victories a testament to Roman might. But he was also a reminder of what Rome had become, a playground for the powerful, where alliances were forged in secret and broken just as quietly. But let us not dwell on such things tonight. Instead, let us imagine Caesar's return from Gaul, his legions marching behind him like a river of iron. Let us hear the roar of the crowd as they greet their hero, their voices shaking the very stones of Rome. This is our history, dear listener, a tale of power and ambition, of triumphs won and lost. It is a story that echoes down the centuries, a testament to the men who shaped it and those who fought against its tide. And as we lie here beneath blankets soft and warm, let us remember that Rome was once like this, alive with intrigue, ablaze with glory. Now, close your eyes. Let the candles flicker fade away, replaced by the march of Caesar's legions. Hear their boots on the cobblestones, feel the thunder of their shields as they lock together. And as you breathe in deeply, let the scent of Rome fill your lungs, incense and old parchment, the faintest hint of smoke from a distant fire. And so, we leave Pompey, Crassus and Caesar to their games of power and intrigue. We turn our backs on Rome's violent streets and Cicero's laments. Instead, we find ourselves a quiet corner of the world, where history's roar fades into a gentle hum. Here, there is only peace, only calm. And here, dear listener, you are safe to let go, to drift away on the tide of dreams. Sleep well. In the heart of winter, beneath a sky heavy with snow, the Rubicon flows, a thin silver thread slicing through the frost-bitten landscape. It is but a modest river, narrow enough for a man to leap across, yet it bears an immense burden, the boundary between Cisalpine Gaul and Italy proper, between duty and treason. January 49 BC. The Senate's decree echoes in Caesar's ears like a death knell. Disband his army? Return to Rome unarmed? To do so would be to surrender himself into the hands of those who hunger for his blood. No, Caesar knows this path leads not to exile, but to execution. The riverbank is stark under the moon's cold gaze. Ice encases the edges, and the water runs swift, dark and treacherous. Here, on the cusp of history, Caesar pauses. His breath misting in the frigid air, he surveys the river that divides his fate. Legend speaks of a vision that night, a figure playing a flute, beckoning him across. Some say it was the god Janus, others whisper it was Caesar's own spirit, daring him to seize control of his destiny. But Caesar needs no such signs. His course is clear. The die is cast, he murmurs, not with fear but resolve. The words resonate through the stillness, a testament to his acceptance of what follows. There is no turning back now. The crossing is swift, almost anticlimactic after the weight of anticipation. Soldiers wade through the icy waters, weapons held aloft, determination etched on their faces. They are not met with resistance. Indeed, they barely warrant notice from the few locals huddled against the cold in nearby farmsteads. Panic ripples through Rome like wildfire. Pompey, the Senate's darling, flees in haste, leaving behind a city paralyzed by fear and indecision. Caesar, meanwhile, marches southwards with steady purpose. Where Pompey expected loyalists, he finds cheering crowds instead, hailing him as their liberator rather than an invader. The civil war that follows is no glorious conflict but a grim necessity. From Spain to Greece, Egypt to Africa, Caesar's campaigns are marked by speed and efficiency, each victory won with minimum bloodshed, each mercy shown sowing seeds of future allegiance. He is relentless, inexorable, always one step ahead, not just of his enemies, but of history itself. Years pass like the turning of pages in an epic tome. Rome watches, waits, worries, and when Caesar finally returns, it is not as a conquering hero but as Dictator Perpetuo, a title bestowed by grateful citizens rather than grasping senators. The city breathes easier under his steady hand. Order replaces chaos, rebuilding begins anew. Marble buildings rise like phoenixes from the ashes of conflict. Theatres, forums, basilicas bearing Caesar's name etched into their very stone. He reforms the calendar, bringing light and logic to its confused cycles. Provinces are reorganized, taxes reformed, bread doled out to the masses at subsidized prices. Rome thrives under his guidance, like a once-neglected garden blooming into life. Yet, amidst this profusion of progress, shadows lengthen. Men who once praised Caesar now eye him warily, whispering fears behind upraised hands. They see not a savior but a tyrant in the making, a dictator who might one day claim kingship. And so, they plot his downfall, each dagger drawn adding another layer to the tapestry of history. But that is a tale for another night. For now, let us linger on this moment, this brief interlude of peace and progress. Let the rhythmic cadence of Caesar's reforms lull you into slumber, like waves upon a shore, gentle yet persistent until they claim your consciousness whole. Feel the cool marble beneath your fingertips, hear the distant echo of cheering crowds, breathe in the scent of freshly cut stone and incense, and let sleep take you, dear listener. Let it enfold you as Rome once did Caesar, cradling you in its embrace, until morning's light banishes darkness entirely. In the hushed confines of a patrician home, far from the torchlit streets of Rome, whispers began to gather like storm clouds. It was here, in the dim light cast by flickering oil lamps, that Marcus Junius Brutus first heard the murmurs of discontent. A man of principle, a steadfast republican, he found himself drawn into conversations where names were spoken softly, eyes darted nervously, and hands gestured in clandestine agreement. Brutus, friend to Caesar, was not alone in his newfound trepidation. Cassius Longinus, sharper of tongue and more personal in his hatred, had been weaving webs of deceit for months. His home, too, echoed with hushed conspiracies, each syllable laced with venom against the growing power of Gaius Julius Caesar. 60 senators in total, a silent majority, began to gather under cover of darkness, their plans forming like shadows around them. No parchment bore witness to their treachery, no messengers carried news of their plot. Trust was placed not in ink but in breath, words whispered from one ear to another, echoing through the marble halls of Rome's grand houses, before dissipating into the night air. The conspiracy grew like a dark vine, unseen by most, felt only by those ensnared within its tendrils. In the quietude of the night before the Ides of March, 44 BC, Caesar's wife Calpurnia cried out in her sleep from terrors that gripped her heart. Her dreams were filled with blood and portents, omens so dire she begged her husband not to attend the Senate session on the morrow. But Caesar was a man of action, not one easily swayed by dreams or fears. Weeks earlier, on the very steps of the capital itself, Spurinna, the Etruscan soothsayer, had warned Caesar of impending danger. "Beware the Ides," he cautioned, his voice heavy with foreboding. Yet even this warning did little to alter Caesar's course. The morning of March 15th dawned chill and grey, as if Rome herself held her breath in anticipation. In his private chambers, Caesar dressed with his usual calm efficiency, his hands steady despite the ominous portents that hung heavy in the air. His toga, a pristine white symbol of his power and authority, was draped across his shoulders by his attendants, its folds falling neatly into place. The walk from Caesar's home to the theater of Pompey was one he had made countless times before. Yet, on this day, the familiar streets seemed strange, the crowds quieter than usual. A man pressed a note into Caesar's hand as they walked, his face pale with urgency. But Caesar merely pocketed it unread, his stride never faltering. The theater of Pompey loomed ahead, its grand marble columns bathed in the cold light of a winter sun. Here, the Senate was to convene, unaware that history was about to be written in blood on their hallowed ground. As Caesar entered the theater, the air grew thick with tension, like the calm before a storm. 23 senators rose from their seats, their faces masks of deceit. With a nod from Brutus, they moved towards Caesar, daggers hidden beneath their togas. The first blow was struck by Tullius Cimber, a man driven by personal grudge rather than political conviction. His dagger plunged into Caesar's neck, drawing the first crimson line against the white of his toga. Caesar's reaction was immediate and instinctive. He cried out, Et tu, brute? His voice echoing through the stunned silence of the theater. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade could. 22 more wounds were to follow, each one a testament to the conspiracy that had grown like a cancer within Rome's halls of power. As Caesar fell at the foot of Pompey's statue, his lifeless body draped in the blood-soaked folds of his toga, a hush descended upon Rome. The conspirators fled into the streets, their faces pale with shock and fear, leaving behind a city stunned by the magnitude of what had just occurred. The theater of Pompey, once a symbol of Rome's grandeur and unity, now stood silent witness to its disintegration. Blood stained its marble floors, echoing the red tide that would soon engulf the Republic in civil war. And as night fell over Rome on that fateful Ides of March, the city held its breath, waiting for the storm that was sure to come. But for now, all was still. The conspirators had struck their blow, and Caesar lay dead at their feet. The great dictator was no more, his power shattered like a broken vessel. And as the first stars began to appear in the night sky above Rome, it seemed that nothing would ever be the same again. In the hushed aftermath of that fateful Ides, Rome held its breath. A palpable tension hung in the air, like the calm before a storm, as if the very gods awaited what would come next. The conspirators, their knives still dripping with Caesar's blood, stood amidst the Senate, expecting cheers for their perceived patriotic act. Yet none came. Instead, silence descended, heavy and oppressive, broken only by the distant whispers of rumors spreading like wildfire through the cobblestone streets. The Forum, once a bustling hub of commerce and politics, now lay shrouded in an eerie stillness. The marble columns, weathered sentinels of Rome's grandeur, seemed to lean in, as if listening for some unseen signal. The air was thick with incense from the temples, mingling with the acrid scent of fear that clung to every citizen. Even the Tiber, usually a lively thoroughfare of boats and barges, flowed sluggishly beneath the Roman night, its waters reflecting only the flickering torches held by anxious sentries. Meanwhile, Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, lay hidden in his home, nursing wounds both physical and political. He had watched from afar as Caesar fell, a silent witness to history being rewritten in blood. Now he plotted his next move, like a general surveying the battlefield before engaging the enemy. Antony knew well the power of rhetoric, the sway it held over Roman hearts. He understood that the Senate's silence was not victory but merely the lull before the tempest. So, he reached out to Calpurnia, Caesar's widow, and through her, secured his friend's body and personal papers. The latter were no mere trifles. They included Caesar's will, a document of immense political significance. Days passed like this, in a strange limbo where Rome waited, breath held collective, for something, anything, to happen. Then came the funeral arrangements. Caesar's body, cleaned and anointed, was laid out on a bier, his bloodied toga displayed beside him, a grim testament to the violence that had befallen him. The Forum, once again thronged with citizens, bore witness to this macabre exhibition. The crowd murmured, restless as a disturbed nest of vipers. Grief turned swiftly into rage, fueled by whispered accounts of Caesar's last moments, each telling growing more graphic than the last. There was anger too at the conspirators' bold claim that they had acted in Rome's best interest. They were called traitors now, not patriots. Amidst this swelling tide of emotion, Antony stepped forward. He ascended the rostrum, his face a mask of calm dignity despite the turmoil within him. This was it, the moment he'd been preparing for since that fateful Ides. His hands held Caesar's will and papers, his trump cards in the game of power politics. Antony began to speak. His voice, measured yet powerful, carried across the Forum, reaching every ear, piercing every heart. No written record survives of his actual words, but Plutarch tells us that Antony played on the crowd's emotions like a lyre, evoking pathos and pity with masterful eloquence. He read aloud Caesar's will, revealing that Caesar had left money to every Roman citizen. Gasps echoed through the Forum. This was not the act of a tyrant, but of a man who loved his people. Antony let this revelation sink in, allowing the crowd's murmurs to swell like gathering storm clouds. Then, with deliberate slowness, he unveiled Caesar's bloodied toga, displaying its 23 wounds for all to see. A collective cry of outrage erupted from the crowd. They had seen enough. The conspirators were no longer patriots but murderers, and Rome was aghast at their betrayal. The funeral quickly descended into chaos. Bonfires blazed spontaneously, fueled by anger and grief. Torches, meant to illuminate Caesar's pyre, became weapons in the hands of vengeful citizens. The conspirators, realizing too late that they had no plan for what came after, fled the city like rats deserting a sinking ship. Brutus and Cassius, the chief conspirators, sailed eastwards, their ships cutting through the waters with desperate haste. Rome convulsed with grief and fury, its streets echoing with cries of vengeance against Caesar's killers. The Senate, once the bastion of Roman power, stood shaken and divided, its authority challenged by the mob's thirst for justice. In this maelstrom of emotion, Antony emerged as the voice of reason, the calm eye at the storm's center. He promised retribution, not just for Caesar but for Rome itself, betrayed by those who claimed to love her most. And so, under the watchful eyes of marble gods and torchlit knights, Rome began to rebuild, its future uncertain yet unyielding in the face of adversity. As the city slept fitfully beneath a sky heavy with smoke and stars alike, Antony waited, his patience as unyielding as the marble columns that bore silent witness to Rome's tumultuous history. For he knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight. But tonight, under the Roman moon, there was only waiting, watching, remembering. In the twilight of the Roman Republic, as the sun dipped below the 7 hills, a trinity of power emerged from the ashes of chaos. Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus, united not by brotherhood but by necessity, formed the Second Triumvirate. Their alliance was forged in blood, a pact sealed with promises whispered under the watchful eyes of marble gods. The Forum Romanum, once echoing with the orations of Cicero, now resonated with the clamor of armed legions. The Rostra, where the great orator had swayed minds and hearts, bore witness to a grisly tableau, Cicero's hands and head nailed high for all to see. A silent testament to the proscriptions that swept through Rome like a plague, leaving thousands bereft of life, homes, and dignity. The Tiber flowed dark and indifferent, carrying whispers of the dead downstream towards the sea. Yet, amidst the carnage, life persisted, tenacious as the ivy clinging to ancient stones. Markets bustled with merchants hawking wares, children played hopscotch on cobblestones worn smooth by countless footsteps, and laundresses gossiped beside the public baths. As suddenly as they had appeared, the proscriptions ended. The triumvirs turned their gaze eastward, towards Philippi, where Brutus and Cassius held sway with armies bolstered by discontent. Here, beneath skies heavy with impending storm, 2 great battles were fought. On their outcome hung the fate of Rome. The first engagement opened with a clash of steel on steel, a symphony discordant and brutal. Shields splintered under blows intended for flesh, men screamed as they fell, trampled by friend and foe alike. As day waned, neither side yielded ground. It was not until dawn broke over Philippi that Antony's forces routed Brutus's left wing, but triumph was fleeting. Cassius's right wing counterattacked with ferocity born of desperation. Night fell again upon the battlefield, cloaking survivors in shadows where they waited, hearts pounding like drums against rib cages. When morning came, it brought with it Octavian's reinforcements. With renewed vigor, Antony drove Brutus back towards his camp. Yet even as victory seemed within grasp, treachery lurked unseen. In his tent that night, Cassius found himself surrounded by deserting officers. "I am not slain because I slew my country," he declared, then fell upon his sword rather than face capture. Meanwhile, Brutus, believing Cassius dead and defeat inevitable, took his own life. Thus ended the conspiracy that had begun with Caesar's assassination 5 years prior. With their rivals vanquished, the triumvirs divided Rome between them. Antony claimed the east, Octavian the west, while Lepidus was left with Africa as consolation prize. Yet power dynamics shifted like sands beneath their feet. Antony, ensconced in Egypt, found himself ensnared by Cleopatra's allure, neglecting his political duties for her soft whispers and languid embraces. Meanwhile, Octavian consolidated power in the west, his grip tightening around Rome even as Antony's fingers loosened on the east. War was inevitable. It simmered like lava beneath Mount Vesuvius, waiting to erupt. And erupt it did, off the coast of Actium, where Octavian's superior fleet routed Antony's forces. Antony fled, tail between legs, back to Cleopatra in Alexandria. There they waited, lovers entwined in a web of desperation and despair. When news reached them that their navy had defected to Octavian, they turned to each other, seeking solace amidst impending doom. But solace proved elusive. Death came for them both, Antony by his own hand, Cleopatra by the bite of an asp. Egypt fell under Roman dominion, its riches pouring into Octavian's coffers like wine from a shattered amphora. With Egypt secured and Antony defeated, Octavian returned to Rome in 29 BC, triumphant yet weary. He closed the doors of the Temple of Janus, traditionally opened during times of war, signaling an end to hostilities. Yet peace did not bring contentment. The Senate, cowed but not broken, still held fragments of power. To maintain his grip on Rome without appearing tyrannical, Octavian played a delicate game. In 27 BC, he surrendered his extraordinary powers and accepted the title Augustus, revered or majestic, a name that echoed through history, resonating with echoes of divine right. And so, Rome slept under its first emperor, unaware of the shift in governance that had taken place beneath their very noses. The Republic lived on in name alone, a ghost haunting the Forum's marble columns. Yet life persisted, tenacious as ever. Markets bustled anew, children played, laundresses gossiped. Above them all, stars wheeled in silent procession across the night sky. Unchanged, unchanging, they bore witness to Rome's transformation from republic to empire. From their lofty vantage point, they saw not just the Forum below, but also the distant provinces, Gaul, Germania, Britannia, now bound together under one rule. As you lie here listening, let this thought carry you away on gentle wings. Rome endures. Through betrayals and battles, proscriptions and triumphs, it endures. And so too shall you endure through life's trials and tribulations, finding solace in the knowledge that change is constant, yet some things remain eternal. Now allow your eyelids to grow heavy, let your breaths deepen.